In this video, I'm going to give you 5 players with big-time upside to target in your fantasy baseball drafts. Number 1, we go to the New York Mets, Mark Vientos. First of all, hat tip to my guy, Jeff Erickson, who's been driving the Mark Vientos bandwagon this spring. I guess I'm hopping on, Jeff. Vientos didn't even make the Mets opening day roster last season, still managed to come up and finish third on the team in home runs with 27. Did that in just 111 games, tacked on 71 RBI, hit 266. Now, strikeout rate is an issue. That's been a part of his profile at the minor league levels as well. Struck out about 30% of the time in 65 MLB games in 2023. Was at about the same level last season. But the power potential here is immense. We're talking about top 10% barrel rate, especially crushes left-handed pitching, hit 300 against left-handers last season. You're certainly not getting Vientos at a 2024 price. There's no discount this time around. You're going to have to take him just inside the top 100. And again, we need to be realistic about the stat profile here. He's not going to steal bases. We'll see where that batting average ends up settling. I'd like to see that 7% walk rate rise a bit. But we're ultimately talking about a guy with 35 to 40 home run potential, could push for 90 RBI. He's a part of what should be a great lineup in New York this season. So if you're looking for power in the middle rounds, I love Mark Vientos. Next on the list, we're going to a pitcher, Spencer Strider of the Atlanta Braves. And full disclosure, Strider is the type of player who I tend to avoid in fantasy drafts. He's coming off a lost season, multiple arm injuries over the last few years. We know that. But we're talking about league-winning type of players here, guys who could single-handedly swing your fortunes. And I think Spencer Strider might be the epitome of that for the 2025 season. Now, the expectation remains that the Braves will be cautious here. He could start the year on the IL. They'll be closely monitoring the innings load. We know that. But it's tough to ignore just how dominant Strider looked in his spring debut. 2 2/3 innings, 6 strikeouts, 23 of 27 pitches going for strikes. It's just one start. It's spring training, but it was a huge step in the right direction. Already seeing his ADP on the rise. And part of the reason for that is we are very familiar with the kind of upside that Spencer Strider presents when he's right. 202 strikeouts, a 2.67 ERA, and 131 innings back in 2022, an MLB leading 20 wins and 281 strikeouts in 2023. When healthy, Strider is arguably the best pitcher in all of Major League Baseball. And again, we have to be realistic about the workload. We're not going to be looking at 185 innings here, but he's also not coming off of Tommy John surgery. That was back in 2019. This is the internal brace procedure. We'll see a reduction in innings, but if things break right, if Strider gives you even a reasonably close to best case scenario season, the return on investment here relative to where he's going in drafts could swing your season. Before we get to the rest of the list, you want a competitive edge in your fantasy baseball draft, get expert rankings, premium analysis, all the best tools in the game. Get signed up right now for a free trial over at rotowire.com/try. All right, the third player on our list, one of my favorite players in all of baseball, James Wood of the Washington Nationals. Washington, realistically, still mired in a rebuild. This is a team with some exciting young position players, however, and it starts with James Wood, one of my favorite young players to watch in all of the majors. Wood won't turn 23 until September. So we're talking about a guy who's still very early in his career. He's raw, but still has plenty of room for improvement. That's going to start with the strikeout rate, which sat close to 30% last season. It has to improve. It was an issue in the minors as well. But Wood adjusted quickly overall to the MLB level last season. Hit 264, 9 home runs, 41 RBI, 14 steals in just 79 games. And while that strikeout rate is a concern, he did post nearly a 12% walk rate. We love that. If you're drafting James Wood, you're betting on a big leap in what will be his first full major league season. Already off to a great start this spring, 4 homers, 9 RBI, 11 hits in 11 games. If things break right, Wood could hit 20 to 25 homers. He could push for 25, 30 steals for a Nationals team that ran at the highest rate in the major leagues last season. The steals are a big part of the appeal here when it comes to James Wood. Last season, only 3 players, Elly De La Cruz, Shohei Ohtani, and Jose Ramirez, hit at least 25 homers and stole at least 30 bases. James Wood could join that club in 2025. All right, next up, we're going to Chicago. Pete Crow-Armstrong. You won't have to burn a top 100 pick on Crow-Armstrong. We're looking at an ADP closer to that 115, 125 range, but I think there's plenty of upside here as part of what should be an improved Chicago Cubs lineup. Crow-Armstrong came up from AAA last season, initially struggled. He was hitting just 192 at the end of June, but something clicked for him over the second half. You look at his last 200-plus plate appearances, /287, 338, 470, 7 of his 10 home runs coming in the final 43 games of the year. Overall, in 123 games, he hit just 237. The strikeout rate was reasonable, around 24%. Would like to see some improvement on the walk rate. That was hanging around about 5%. but he chipped in 47 RBI, and most importantly for fantasy, stole 27 bases on 30 attempts. Now, Crow-Armstrong may not have the same power upside as someone like James Wood, but the stolen base upside is immense. The Cubs are an aggressive base running team. Crow-Armstrong could push for a 40 steal season. That's totally realistic. We only saw 5 players accomplish that in 2024. Again, we'll see where the batting average settles in. He was going to need to prove himself, especially against left-handed pitching, but Crow-Armstrong is having an excellent spring. If he could pick up where he left off over the second half of last season, I think he's a really nice value, a rare find for elite steals post-pick 100. All right, we saved maybe my favorite player on the list for last, our 5th and final potential league winner, Brent Rooker of the Athletics. We love us some Athletics. Lawrence Butler is a target, Mason Miller, even like some Shea Langoliers around pick 100, but my favorite A's player right now is Brent Rooker, going around pick 50 to 55 at the NFBC. He is UT only for the time being, but the hope is that he returns to playing the outfield, regains that outfield eligibility in short order. That's what the A's are telling us, at least. Keep in mind, he did play through an arm issue for most of last season, and that essentially relegated him to DH duties. That arm soreness, to me, it probably impacted him in the field more than anything, but it makes last season even more impressive. Rooker set career highs across the board, hit 293. That was up from 246 in 2023. 39 homers, 112 RBI, even gave you 11 steals. The walk rate was the best of his career. Still striking out at close to a 30% clip. We don't love that, but we'll forgive it when he's giving you that kind of power production. If you take a look at the last 2 seasons in total, only 8 players have hit more total home runs than Brent Rooker's 69. And of those 8 players, only 2, Shohei Ohtani and Juan Soto, have more stolen bases. Ultimately, we're talking about 15 total steals here for Brent Rooker. So got to be realistic, but getting double-digit steals out of a power bat like Rooker, it's not nothing. Every steal matters. Now, I am usually hesitant to buy in on a player coming off of what feels like a best-case scenario season, and 2024 was that for Brent Rooker. You can look at just about any category, any stat, and it was the best year of his career. But the A's are no longer the Oakland A's. They're playing in Sacramento. So Rooker goes from one of the most pitcher-friendly parks in Oakland to what should be a significantly more hitter-friendly environment in Sacramento. You combine that with the fact that he actually has some talent around him. There's some protection in this lineup. I think that offsets some of those concerns. So again, he's another player where we'll see where that batting average comes in. Is he going to hit close to 290 again? I'm not sure he will, but even if it settles somewhere in the middle of the last 2 seasons, I think the power numbers are at least sustainable given the change in environment.